The First Lady of Nigeria has criticised the nakedness of Meghan Markle following her royal visit to Nigeria. The visit was a success, though, wasn't
God, yeah. This visit that, well, an unofficial royal visit, as it's been called by the press. But one of the things that Meghan Markle said was she came looking for Africa, and Africa was her country, and Nigeria, sorry. And I just found it all very bizarre and a bit creepy in a way. Just the way that the narrative that she was trying to build, it just didn't work for me.
It's a bit like Barack Obama, though, isn't it? The way he's part European and part African, but it's the African bit we're really obsessed with.
Oh, definitely. And I find it quite funny that the First Lady has become under no criticism because apparently anybody who criticises Meghan Markle is a racist. But this woman hasn't been called anything. Like, this has been shufted off to the side by all the people defending Meghan Markle and no one's commenting on it. It kind of shows the hypocrisy quite a bit, I think.
I mean, is she just jumping on absolutely anything now to stay relevant?
Oh, she's been doing that for quite some time. And to give her some credit, it is kind of working for her. But this tour was somewhat of a complete failure, if we're being honest. And, you know, it was a bit of a flash in the pan, and hopefully they'll learn a lesson from this. But I highly doubt that.
Ryan, do people still care about what Meghan and Harry are doing?
They do. We pay attention to it, and we write about it. We see them on TV stations left, right and centre all over the world. They are, you know, some people may not like them, may not disagree with the way they left the royal family, but certainly we listen to what they say, and it doesn't matter whether it's across politics, social affairs, that we do sit up and listen.
I'll tell you the one thing that's amazing, and look, we're journalists, but anyway, I just have to take my hat off to Meghan Markle. Seemingly sensible businesses have lost tens of millions paying her to do just about nothing.
Yeah, it does seem that way. I think whether it's been Spotify or the big businesses in America that she signed big deals with, they haven't done as well as what they would like. So I think that's why they're trying to tailor their brand towards, you know, areas they can sort of maybe touchy-feely type sort of areas they can actually sort of make some money and actually do well out of, and actually relaunch themselves into something a bit different in the coming years, because it doesn't look like they'll be spending much time here, so they're going to have to find their market in America and elsewhere.
I always thought, Peter, it was a bit juvenile of Prince Harry, because you got this impression that he'd lived quite a closeted lifestyle, and then suddenly he discovered racism and sort of thought that everybody else had discovered it at the same time, and he started coming out with all this crap that everyone had heard years ago.
I'm sorry, Prince Harry only just become juvenile. But no, I think you're right here. I think this is why a lot of people kind of just didn't have a lot of respect for what he was saying. It's just like, so he's just discovered all of this problems. It's like, I had no idea. And I think it was the kind of disingenuousness that kind of came across through that. A lot of people always said that it was Meghan kind of leading him along, but I actually think he was somewhat of a very willing participant in a lot of this. You know, it's the whole thing of him being whipped and all the rest of it. I don't really buy into that. I think he was very happy to kind of go out there and sell that book.
It's Prince Harry. Well, I agree with you. It's absolutely dreadful. He's just said that his son Archie has been discriminated against because he's black. Now, I don't know what to tell you, but he has also got ginger hair. Anyway, is it true the First Lady of Nigeria has had a go at Meghan Markle? Is it true or is it false?
It's true.
It's absolutely true. OK, Ryan. Hillary Clinton has said she lost the 2016 presidential race to Donald Trump because women voters abandoned her for not being perfect. Is it true or is it false? And before you answer that question, let's just remind ourselves, not being perfect may have involved pilfering 33,000 confidential emails.
Yeah, no, exactly. Hillary Clinton thought it was quite a good idea to actually explain why she lost the 2016 election in America. And one of the reasons was that you know, the women thought that she had to be perfect. They were only going to vote for her if she gave create that perfect image of what a woman actually was. Now, she does in this interview draw a comparison with Donald Trump. There were some flaws with him, and but the public didn't see it because he was a man, and through the eyes of everyone they see this man as this perfect being. But for her, she had to be the perfect, and she wasn't. She didn't live up to the American public's high standards, and that's why she says she didn't get elected.
I've got to be honest, that moment when she said it's just awfully good that somebody like Donald Trump isn't in charge of our justice system because you'd be in jail. That was the absolute classic moment.
And let's just see what happens in those debates this time. If they do actually take place, they're going to be an absolute showcase. I don't know if it's going to be the biggest thing that's ever going to be watched in American history, the way that the media landscape is these days, but you can guarantee a hell of a lot of people are going to be tuning in just mainly for the barbs and the insults from Trump to Biden. You expect Biden will rise above that. But in terms of Trump, he's going to be going for the jugular every chance he gets.
I mean,
I'm not sure. I'm just saying, I don't think he will. I think Biden recently, if you look at like all everything that's coming out over Twitter, for example, there's been a lot of personal attacks on Donald Trump. Like he's very willing to throw the mud around just as much as Trump is. And I think, to be fair, he's kind of got to.
I'm going to give this away slightly, but my other job is teaching senior people to do public speaking. What would you do with Joe Biden if you were Donald Trump? Because there is an element of just kicking a wounded animal.
For Trump, these debates are going to be about exposing Biden as a man who's no longer capable, really, of thinking properly.
I mean, I guess the thing is, Donald Trump is like Sadiq Khan. He will go nasty. There's just no doubt. There's no point in trying to play nice. I guess if I was Biden, I'd just go for him immediately and see what happens.
For me, the reason that Hillary Clinton really lost was the sense of entitlement, that it was somehow her go at it, that somehow it was just naturally going to be hers. And I think no matter where you are, that kind of, well, it's clearly got to be mine. I think voters just don't like that, no matter where you are in the world. And, you know, when you've got so much kind of, it's like not a sleaze behind it, but so many questions that she just didn't bother answering. And then also insulting voters, calling them deplorables. I still think that was one of the best bits that the Trump campaign did, was take that off them and use it as a kind of moniker. I think that was brilliant, just to kind of slap that away. But that interview, I think that interview was why she lost, and it's staggering, really.
I've got to say one thing about Hillary, though. She is obsessed with women being believed to are victims of sexual violence unless the words Bill Clinton come anywhere near it. And you think, look, I mean, I'm not sure that everybody who makes an allegation should automatically be believed. But if you say that and then say, unless you're accusing Bill Clinton, you know, you're unworthy of public office.
Yeah, definitely. You have to go back to what Madeleine Albright said when she was out stumping for Hillary, saying like, oh, women who don't support other women, there's like a special place in hell for you or something ridiculous like that. She said, well, of course you've got to turn people off saying things like that. I never understood the fact where she's like, oh, you've got to vote for her because there are something. I think that is the worst reason to vote for somebody.
Look, do you think Donald Trump's going to win, Ryan?
Yeah, I say yes. Actually, I think I think he's going to build up that support, and every single time there's an issue, you know, whether he's in court, it just embellishes his groundswell of support, and I think that he's just going to get over the line.
You know, I just look back at the last midterms, and you know, there's a lot of quiet Americans out there who just want to go sensible, and they rejected the Trump candidates, and they went for sensible Democrats.
I think David, this is the argument, isn't it? Because I look at Hillary Clinton and I think that her behaviour made her somebody who was basically ineligible to be American president. And even though Donald Trump was a bit of a rabble-rouser, he certainly hadn't done the things that Hillary Clinton had done. Just one final thing to the three of you. Any chance of Biden being swapped out at the last minute?
I think
it's looking less likely.
It's looking less likely now. I think we're so close to the actual elections. I think they've missed the boat on that one. And if they did, who would they switch about for? Kamala? No, she's not getting anything on. Gary Newsom was also the one that was touted out, wasn't anything?
I think Gary Newsom was the more likely. But I mean, to be fair on Biden, you know, with all the question marks about his health and things, he has looked more reinvigorated over the last couple of months.
Reinvigorated? basically, it's like Brezhnev. They've rodded his back on me on that. It's Brezhnev. He said, at least I never lost the door to the White House. OK, so, Ryan, has Hillary Clinton blamed women for her losing the presidential race? Is it true?
That's true.
It's absolutely true. OK, David, the Conservative Party has less than 2 weeks to find 150 candidates to stand as MPs. I have to say to you, my dad, a very nice former director of the Co-op, got phoned to be on a selection panel for a seat the Conservatives currently hold. And they're dragooning everyone. Yeah.
It may actually be a lot more than 150. I was writing a story last week where it was 191, and then a whole load of people resigned as MPs and said they weren't standing again, including Michael Gove, rather weirdly, whilst the Prime Minister was at the Titanic. But, you know, that's the old Titanic Museum. You know, this is... I was literally speaking to my local Conservative candidate last night, who is unable to campaign properly because he doesn't have any holiday booked because he was expecting an autumn election. And this kind of shows you how little Rishi Sunak discussed it with anybody. The entire operation, all the candidates, CCHQ, a lot weren't prepared, didn't know what was going on, and have been completely caught cold whereas actually Labour and even Reform and the Lib Dems look relatively organised.
I've got to tell you, the worst disaster I've ever seen in the selection was in the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, where one Alex Chalk was elected to the council. I remember him phoning his mum and dad going, "Mum, Dad, it's a disaster. I've been elected to the council. I now have to resign as a barrister dealing with electoral law." Probably losing the thick end of 200 grand a year in the process. Can they get this together, Ryan, the Conservative Party?
I think they always find a way, by hook or by crook. They'll find the candidates. There's enough people who are young, keen, ex-councillors, they'll find. But I do think the MPs who are standing down, I think a lot of them were really annoyed with the party leadership. They were going to use the next 6 months possibly to find another job, raise issues in Parliament, and I think that's just really wound everyone up the wrong way. Not only do the MPs sort of lose their jobs, but it's also the staff. They've had to say goodbye to them very quickly, and they thought they had those extra few months. They thought they'd get through the summer and maybe look for an alternative career, and that's just been taken away from them.
There was a time when Parliament was the centre of debate, the centre of politics. Now, it's just a fairly mundane body that rubber stamps government's decisions. It doesn't it? I mean, I genuinely think most MPs would struggle to explain how legislation's made.
Oh, I think, yeah. I've yet to find a backbencher I think can tell you how a bill becomes a law. But yeah, I do think that. But that has to change. And I think maybe with some fresh faces and some new blood, we might get a reinvigoration.
You're in Parliament pretty much every day because there's still the press gallery. Presumably you are as well, David.
I am indeed.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel that the place is declining?
I wouldn't say declining, but I certainly think that perhaps the 2019 intake was seen as perhaps a little bit more inexperienced than normal. I think you had a lot of churn after all the sort of Brexit stuff. So I think now, and the trouble is when you get this new breed of MPs, but from a very, very, you're going to have perhaps 200 new MPs. A third of the legislature is going to be new. That's going to take them 2 or 3 years to actually get used to it all. So it's going to be tough in terms of, they always say Parliament is that talking shop. And it feels like it probably is more so than ever, especially as the government over the last 20, 25 years or so has devolved more and more power. You can't, whether it's Manchester, London, Scotland, Wales, you kind of have to ask yourself, is it really got all those powers?
I think if Form's anything to go by, it'll take them 2 or 3 years to allocate them an office.
Exactly. But I just think, that 29 intake, and it was a big intake. They spent virtually the first 2 years sitting, in their homes because of lockdown and things. A lot of them will be going or losing their seats.
Well, the irony, David, and I'm talking about the same person, I won't name him, but the irony is, what my mate said to me was, actually, during coronavirus, it felt like there was a job to do. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
He said, look, when Rishi Sunak came in, the party was over. Right, we were all going to lose in the red wall. It was just basically a waste of time. And he said, look, I was just turning up every day, doing nothing, and just, dead man walking.
I used to watch I sit a lot in Portcullis House. And Wednesday afternoons, you just watch the stampede with the mini suitcases on wheels to the exit door, where the MP is just going home, and either to campaign or to do something else, because there was so little going on in Parliament, just given up.
Yeah.
And what I think though is interesting though is, let's assume Keir Starmer's going to win and win big at the moment, unless something dramatic happens. Then, if I were him, I would make sure I get everything done I really want done in the first 2 years, because he'll have a whole load of inexperienced MPs, not much opposition. He can really change stuff, really whack stuff through before people kind of wake up and start working out how to use the procedures to stop.
But is David Starkey right that this is the first election, probably in British history, where somebody's going to win by a landslide that nobody wants?
There's a good chance of that. It's becoming the election of who do you want less.
Yes.
And there's a lot of truth in that. There's no love for Starmer in the polls.
But I find it depressing.
There's more love for him than Sunak.
But I find it depressing that every political party is going, I'm shit and they're worse. You just think, what on earth are you doing? There's no vision. There's no attempt to do anything.
That's been our politics really for quite some time now, probably since Blair, to be honest. Since our politics became so kind of instantaneous, like what is the immediate win? There's a need for a big vision. I don't think is there anymore.
The thing about Blair, I think, was the first presidential style PM. And the trouble was, he then set the kind of blueprint for how we run elections and this kind of presidential style, which we're actually seeing again. We're only seeing Starmer and Sunak, really, and the rest are kind of very much on the...
I mean, look, I'll tell you the problem. I'll tell you the problem with Blair, and I've railed about it on this programme. It's the executive agencies.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you vote for in this election. You will get a wet, lefty, centre government. I mean, if you think about it, in terms of public appointments, I can name 3 Conservatives. That bloke from the BBC was his name, Tim Davis. They got rid of him over Lineker, even though he had nothing to do with it. Toby Young, who was vetoed by your newspaper, I believe. And Sir Roger Scruton, who was basically hounded. Those are 3 public appointments of, 4,000 that you could say Conservatives have got? It's insane.
Can I just pick up something you said that on this being a presidential election? I think that's true mainly in the Conservatives, but I think Labour are doing their very best to not talk about Keir Starmer. Like, he seems to have made himself such a small little target.
He just did a big speech about...
But think about it.
It's me.
But think about it. Who's really talking about that big speech? Who's really... The thing that everybody's talking about is national service. Like, you know, what Labour have done is, I think, quite smart. Is because nobody really likes him. They've made him really small target. So if the Tories do go after him, it's really difficult to really land their hitting shot.
Pete, isn't the moment of doom when you go, I know, national service?
No, I disagree with you on that one. I completely disagree. I think it's quite popular in the public. It's popular amongst Reform voters. It's popular amongst Conservative voters. I think there is something...
Sorry, Pete, can I just ask you, as a political strategist, how you can sit there and say to me, the number one thing Britain needs now is more people in the public sector? Right, can I tell you, 44% of our GDP, the reason everybody's poor is for every family you've got, you're paying for another one who works for the government.
Yeah, but then I think the point of it isn't just necessarily the military aspect of it, but I do think it's about reinvesting people back into the country. We do have a productivity problem, and I think getting people out of the house, don't forget, there's, 3 in 5 18 to 24-year-olds are economically inactive. Getting them out the house, getting them involved in something is a good step.
Can I tell you, the way to get teenagers out and about is to ban 3 things. Xbox, Sugar Puffs, and Guns and Ammo magazine. Right? You can't have any of those. You can't sit in your boxer shorts eating Sugar Puffs, playing on your computer. Get out and do something.
No, but it is kind of interesting, isn't it, though? But basically, the Conservative Party now going as we are. You know, I think it's because Rishi was targeted on loose women for hating pensioners. No, we have a party that loves pensioners and hates young people. Young people vote Labour. So we're going to just dump this really nasty idea on them, something they don't want. And by the way, today we're going to give pensioners even more money.
I've got to be honest with you, David. Of all the mistakes that Rishi Sunak has made, when you look like Roland Rat, don't drown yourself. Right? It's just the worst thing you can do is be the drowned rat.
But on national service, didn't they attack it from the wrong way? They should have made it sort of a national citizenship service. It wasn't about conscription.
Right. Now, what I've got to say to you, Ryan, you are preempting a future question. Now, look, that is proof to the viewers and listeners that we don't send the questions to the panellists in advance. Or it proves that Ryan didn't read them. Anyway, David, has the Conservative Party got to find 150 people for its parliamentary seats? Is it true or is it false?
It is true.
It's absolutely true.
That Was the Woke That Was continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was the Woke That Was.
Yes, so this is That Was the Woke That Was with the independent political editor, David Maddox, the Sun's deputy political editor, Ryan Sabey, and the political strategist to end them all, Pete Barnes. I don't know why I said that.
I don't know.
Okay, Pete. Jeremy Corbyn, true.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeremy Corbyn has declared his ambitious plans to nationalise Islington North if he becomes an MP.
Wasn't it already nationalised?
I'm going to say, the Independent Republic of North Islington. But I don't know. Jeremy Corbyn is such an interesting figure at the minute. Because
is he?
No, because
is he really?
Some people keep saying he's irrelevant, and some people keep saying he's so important. I think it's somewhere in between. I think when he speaks...
Sorry, Pete, just to be clear, you're a political strategist. He's either relevant or irrelevant. Well, that's groundbreaking, isn't it?
No, but do you know what I mean? Like, some people are trying to say, oh, no, Labour have moved on from him. He's not a Labour MP anymore, blah, blah, blah. And some people say, like, he's a central thing of everything. I think the thing you have to remember is where every time Jeremy Corbyn opens his mouth, everybody pays attention to it. So if he starts going around saying, well, the Labour Party used to be about this, the Labour Party used to do that, I think that message will definitely fight through. Also, if he links up with the likes of George Galloway and he starts forming those little alliances, I think the Labour Party might be in for a bit of trouble.
Well, before we go to the other guys, You're from Wigan.
Yep.
I'm from Lee. Obviously, the Conservatives won Lee. They didn't quite make it in Wigan. Isn't Jeremy Corbyn a solid gold liability in the Red Wall in Northern England?
Oh, I think he is. His message isn't, and I think that's always been Jeremy Corbyn's problem, and that was Labour's main issue. Was like he was just the wrong messenger for what he was trying to sell. He was too problematic. There's too much baggage around him. But that kind of wanting to build a fairer society and all that kind of thing is very attractive to people. Let's not forget, the Labour Party in that period was a mass movement. So many people joined. Like he got people.
I joined 4 times.
I know, yeah, but also young people, old people. Right across the board, that message really resonated with a lot of people after years of austerity, years of underfunding in public services. So you can't really knock the impact that Jeremy Corbyn has had.
Do you know why I was expelled from the Labour Party when I joined?
Why?
They wrote to me, and it was completely damning. They said, "It has come to our attention that not only are you a well-known Tory, which of course was like one of the worst things they could think, but you have also publicly supported Nigel Farage." You can see the hatred. I framed the thing and stuck it on my wall. It's absolutely superb.
But it's interesting you bring up Nigel, because I think Nigel is the same as Jeremy Corbyn in a way that he's the wrong messenger for what he's wanting to sell. And I think there are some similarities there, although I imagine Twitter is about to call me all sorts of names right now.
Pete, I mean, we've had to have this conversation before, but you can't appear on this channel and have a go at Nigel Farage. It's just not going to happen. They'll all be sat there with the pitchforks at home kicking off. But look, Ryan, you're the deputy political editor of The Sun. You know what's going on the ground, what people are thinking politically. Jeremy Corbyn surely is a relic.
Yeah, he is now. I mean, that's why I think Sir Keir Starmer's had a lot to do with that. He's basically distanced himself. He's changed the party, and he's shifted him so far out to the left. I mean, there are clearly a certain percentage of the public who believe in what he says, but he's out on a limb, and he may not even win Islington North. No. I think the Labour candidate will do pretty well there.
The number of people that have unseated a political party candidate in a safe seat, it's not many. And even George Galloway has lost, half the times he's attempted to do it.
Yeah, even if you are a big character, you look at Nigel Farage. How many times has he stood for Parliament? 6, 7 times. He's lost every time. So sometimes it takes more than the individual. The party machine is often bigger, especially at the time of a general election. You can probably win them at by-elections.
Yeah.
But I think general elections.
I think it's fair to say.
I completely disagree with that.
I don't want to be overly critical of the Conservative Party, but I think you'll find the party machine in Thanet South was so big they started prosecuting them.
Yeah. I mean, you use Nigel Farage as an example. Yet he may not have won a seat. It doesn't matter that he doesn't win a seat. He's the most influential politician, whether you like it or not, since Tony Blair. And maybe since Margaret Thatcher. We wouldn't have left the European Union if it had been for Nigel Farage. You look at all the various things, the whole banking system was up in the air thanks to Nigel Farage. And that's, you could be actually a much more effective and influential politician outside Parliament than you can be inside. And I think Jeremy Corbyn is far from being a relic. He has a huge amount of supporters around the country. He may not win Islington North, he may win it. Ken Livingstone managed to win London as an independent. So it's possible, but it doesn't matter whether he wins it or not. You look at the people coming out protesting on the streets every weekend. They're all people who like Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes.
That message is very strong in this country. He's going to be an influential figure going forward.
But he's the gap year student who never grew up, isn't he? I mean, he's just all this old rubbish that people, when my nephew's done his gap year in India and just, spent the whole time smoking weed and talking rubbish, it's that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
David can't say that.
No, I don't think it is. And I think the trouble is that a bit he's not dissimilar to Nigel in this respect. He taps in to a sense of grievance especially amongst working class voters, but also actually amongst middle class voters. The whole kind of cost of living issue, all this sort of things around. Jeremy taps into that kind of sense. We don't live in a stable time.
No.
We have massive, our politics is shaped by social media. Their supporters, actually help shape the debate on social media. There is no way that, whatever you think about his politics and things, Jeremy Corbyn's not going away.
I mean, I think the political parties are so dull and full of such dull people that these mavericks are always going to appear.
Just really quickly, I think there's one thing you have to know as to how he's not irrelevant is the fact that throughout his leadership, Keir Starmer has had to give nearly 5 speeches saying that the Labour Party has changed. I am not Jeremy Corbyn. We are not. If he's such an irrelevancy, you wouldn't need to keep talking about him, and that's the point.
It's Jeremy Corbyn! And he said no. It was related to Hamas. Anyway, so Pete, has Jeremy Corbyn declared that he is going to nationalise Islington North? Is it true or is it false?
I think this one might be false.
It is, in fact, false. OK, Ryan. Parents could be fined if children refuse to do national service, according to Foreign Office Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan.
Give that a true. Well, it's actually false, but she said it. She actually did say it. No, this was all the big debate over the weekend with national service, and Anne-Marie Trevelyan was actually asked the question: are parents going to be fined if your parents don't, if your children don't take up the weekend offer of doing some sort of civic duty or actually opt for the military option? Now, I just don't think she had a prepared answer.
No.
I think she went into that and thought, well, a Royal Commission will look at this and they may come up and it may be an outcome. But I think it's very difficult for a parent to be fined if your child is over 18 in the first place. It's just not going to happen. So, but it shouldn't happen.
What is this national service? It's going to be compulsory transsexualism or something, isn't it? I mean, it'll be dreadful.
Yeah, I think there's going to be things like, the volunteering, cyber, maybe helping the military or public services with cyber stuff. Maybe just getting your skills up and then you can go into the workplace. It could be okay.
That's the thing. I actually don't think, if it's done right, I actually think it could be quite a good thing. I think Labour are really wrong to oppose it.
No, it'll be stuff like, let's have more traffic wardens, or just some old rubbish like that.
I really disagree. I think, we talk about our productivity problem. We talk about the fact that young people are disengaging from society. We talk about all these kind of things. And I actually think, getting people involved in something will not only give people more confidence, it'll help mental health issues, upping skills. I think there's a great opportunity. There's a great opportunity
come on. I'll tell you what this is going to do. It's going to upskill people and it's going to deal with mental health problems. Get a job. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but
Pete, what has happened to you? You turned into a communist.
Don't ever say that. But no, I do think there is something to this policy, and the public kind of are on the side of it. They're not like singing, bells and whistles about it, but the polling does indicate
that'd be it as well. Get in with bells and whistles.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, we should have a town crier.
But one thing I will say is that this seems to have been a bit of a rushed policy. It does seem to. Nobody seems to have been consulted about it either. That seems to have infuriated a lot of Conservative MPs. I think Steve Baker went and had a little bit of a pop at Rishi over Facebook or something.
I like Steve Baker very much, but he's also mad.
Yes, that's very true.
And, he's talking about going back to the gold standard and privatising the police.
Is he going to call you from Greece?
He might do. Give him a minute. No, it's the private. It's the privatised police. I thought it was a bad idea as well. Look, I'll tell you what we could do for national service. We could have compulsory watch something sound. You could do something like, you all have to sit there in the cinema and watch The World at War, the entire series of it. They'll go, this is disgraceful, this is disgraceful racism. That's what it'd be like.
So my wife's Italian, and they've literally just got rid of national service in Italy because it's a complete waste of time, and everybody.
Can I tell you? I don't look it, but in fact, I'm half Greek. My uncle Nico was thrown in prison for attempting to guard an army barracks drunkenly with no gun. He was caught playing backgammon with his mates and actually did 30 days in prison. That is the state of the Greek military.
I mean, that's got to be ready for those Turks,
They're not picking anyone off. Famous footballer, you earn £10 million a year. If you're 18, you could be.
It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea.
Can I tell you the best thing?
I really disagree.
The best thing about the Greek military service, I'm not joking, you can get out of it if you pay the salary of a second lieutenant to do it on your behalf, which is €400 a month. Brilliant. Genius.
The way it worked in Italy was exactly as you described it. It'll end up in the way it would work here. Not that it will happen because Rishi's going to lose, but it was just filling in odd jobs
Yes.
needed filling in border post people, to look at passports or cleaning streets and all this sort of business.
Although you can
But,
never, you can never give the example of the UK Border Agency, because when they went on strike, the service improved.
Yeah.
Right, that is, I'll tell you what, that destroyed them.
I just want to go back to Anne-Marie Trevelyan, though, because I thought the scarier thing she was hinting at than people being fined or sent to prison or whatever, was actually that some of these kids might be sent to war. They've got to learn to fight for their
Hang on a second. If what you're being asked to do is fill potholes, can you conscientiously object from that? I don't see the intellectual argument.
No, but this is on the military side. You sign up to the military for a year. Well, I'm not sure people want to be sent out to Eastern Europe or
Well, I
North
think
Africa.
there are going to be 30,000 places available for people to sign up to the military. So you imagine that if you're 18, there is at some point in the next 5 or 10 years, if something happens, that's where you'll be going. So if you don't want to do that side of it, fill in some forms.
Yeah, absolutely.
My dad, who's died in the war, Conservative, called me last night, absolutely spitting blood about it. And he actually was lucky because he was 3 months too young to be in the last tranche of people who had to do national service here. But had he been slightly older, there was a chance he might have been sent to Korea.
Wow.
War there. He just said, why are we doing socialist things?
I've got a very dear friend of mine who's a Conservative candidate, and he's a dual citizen, British and Brazilian. So when he went on holiday in Brazil, I helpfully phoned the embassy to say that he was a draft dodger, and he was arrested at Rio de Janeiro. They tried to force him to stay. Anyway, bought his way out.
Yeah.
But it cost him a few grand. I don't know why I've said that on TV because he didn't know it was me. But anyway, OK. So have parents been told that they might be fined, Ryan? Is it true or is it false?
It's actually false, but it was true. She said it. So
it's absolutely true.
That Was the Woke That Was continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was the Woke That Was.
I'll tell you what, this question is a waste of time for this lot. Pop star Nicki Minaj, right? Come on, David, stick with us. Pop star Nicki Minaj was arrested in Amsterdam this week while live on Instagram. Is it true or is it false? By the way, I know nothing about Nicki Minaj, but because...
She's very pink.
Because Amsterdam is so close in terms of flights from Manchester, people were at the Manchester Arena for the concert when she was arrested.
Yeah. No, and in fact, this is arguably the biggest story of the week. Forget about Keir Starmer's speech in Lansing or wherever it was, or Rishi Sunak drenching himself somewhere. This has upset more people in the country. People literally had flooded to Manchester to see Nicki Minaj.
I mean, that
perform.
co-op arena's had one or two problems, hasn't it?
It's the curse of a co-op arena.
Has the
co-op arena?
Has the co-op arena actually held an event yet? Because everything seems to get cancelled.
Elbow played. They're from Bury down the road, so they actually opened it. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. I mean,
but that was after Take That, I think, moved from the co-op arena to the Manchester arena.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'll tell you a great thing. I think it was at the MEN Arena in Manchester. I went to this event. I forget what it was, but apparently backstage, Graham Norton asked Peter Kay what the big gay area of Manchester was. And Peter Kay said Bury. Right? And so Graham Norton came out at the end and went, right, everyone, I'm off now to Bury. And everyone was like, what the hell's he on about? Why is he going to Bury? It fell completely flat. But look, are you a big Nicki Minaj fan, David?
I can't say that I am. But what kind of got me about this, I believe she was arrested for importing soft drugs.
Yeah, something like
which
that.
Is...
And yet Snoop Dogg landed.
Amsterdam just kind of, has a reputation, dare I say. So is this a single market issue? Was she breaking single market rules?
No, let me explain something about Amsterdam, right? You can do whatever you like, but you can't go through the airport with it. That is the problem.
Exactly.
Ryan...
have you tried?
Have you got it? She was arrested leaving, yes. Ryan, Any thoughts on Nicki Minaj?
All I know is that she's a big American star. She
Yes.
should have played the cop, and that's about it. Yeah, I know if you might be having a couple of 2 young daughters, so I do know about sort of younger pop stars. But yeah, Nicki Minaj has never sort of crossed my sort of radar.
So who's
really.
who's the big ones at the moment?
Sabrina Carpenter.
Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah, Tate McRae.
Take McGray.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Take That tribute
It
group.
does, doesn't it?
It's Take McGray. They're going to sing a Take That song. We don't want it. So Take McGray.
Tate McRae. Tate McRae. Sabrina Carpenter. Tom Brennan, he's a big star. All these people.
I don't know anybody you just mentioned.
Do your daughters do the young girl thing of practicing a simultaneous dance routine?
There's lots of dancing going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you've got sons, they just shoot each other.
Basically.
Okay, so Nicki Minaj. Was she arrested in Amsterdam, David?
She was indeed. It's true.
Absolutely true. Okay, so to Pete. Nigel Farage was told to man up by Lee Anderson after he announced he would not be standing in the general election. Is it true or is it false?
Well, I know this is true, and I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever read. I have to admit, you can see what you like about the Tory...
you read the Labour manifesto in 2019.
Yeah, that's true. No, but you can see what you like about the kind of disastrous start for the Conservatives, but this did one thing, and it took Nigel Farage right out of the game. We all know that he was supposed to announce his big candidacy, his return to frontline politics, and the announcement of the general election caught him off guard, and I think it's made reform somewhat irrelevant. I mean, Nigel this week did a big speech about immigration. It was like the greatest hits. There was nothing else to it. I think reform, I'm no big fan of reform, but I think they failed to really shift away from just being the party about the small boats. I think if they'd have started talking about things like the NHS and the economy, I think they could have been an even bigger threat.
Hang on a second. Let me defend reform for a second. I'm not a member of reform. I've never voted for them. But let's just be clear on something. The Conservative Party had an option to be relevant and come up with some good stuff, and in the end thought, let's just use a trick to do over reform. I mean, that is the standard now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But the one thing I would say is it's 1 in 6 2019 Conservative voters are now expected to go to reform. That still won't give them any seats, but I'm not saying they won't inflict any damage to the Conservatives, because they definitely will. But let's be real, politics is about winning and losing. It's a zero-sum game. So, at some point, the kind of trickery and all these games do play into it. But I do think that Nigel was taken out of this very cleanly, and I do think that Lee saying "man up" is very funny. But I think Lee will also lose his seat. I think reform are pretty much done.
The problem is with Lee, he's a parody of Lee, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Suddenly he stopped getting the joke.
Yeah,
right?
but the one thing I will say is that reform really missed a trick by Ben Habib not taking out Richard Tice. I think Ben leading reform would be a very different party. Because it's not possible. But I've
got to be honest with you, David.
Tice literally owns.
That is.
I've got to be honest with you about Richard Tice. I like him. I say hello to him or whatever. A lot of these people. So there are two groups of people who are disaffected. There are some people who have a political problem and are concerned about the Conservatives, and there are others that just happen to fall out with them and not get a peerage. And I think Tice very much falls into the latter category. I mean, if the Conservatives turned around now and said, "Give us a seat, and we'll give you a seat in the House of Lords if you give up on reform," you wouldn't see his heels for dust.
He wanted to be the Conservative candidate for London Mayor, not this time round, but the previous time round. Actually, I think he'd have been quite a good candidate for them. At least he understands London. I could see
what somebody said disparaging
him.
about him? He said he can never deal with working class people or toffs. He's not welcoming either Weatherspoons or the Reform Club. I thought, that's a reasonable point. The other thing, and I'm not slagging off Tice because I quite like him, but somebody did say, if you'd inherited that much money, you'd be doing something more fun. I think that's a reasonable point.
It's a reasonable point. No, but I'm not saying that Reform are out of this entirely. I really aren't. I'm really not. But I do think that listening to Farage this week, I was like, there's nothing else to them.
Yeah, but the problem is the issue has still not been sorted.
The issue is still not been sorted, but it's not gaining... whoever's going to vote Reform is always going to vote Reform now. I don't think the chance of getting any more votes is out.
Let me just ask you a fundamental question here. What would it take the Conservative Party to do for you actually to get... I mean, look, even I've given up. Right, I mean, right? I mean, my brother is the chairman of the Warrington Conservative Party. My dad is the vice chairman of the League Conservative Party. Right? I mean, I worked in Parliament, the European Parliament, London City Hall.
Yeah.
Like, and even I think, oh, God, they're awful.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the stories aren't brilliant, but my problem with Reform is I just don't believe that they're genuine in what they're saying. Like, they're not serious people. Like, if you really want to fix the problem of the small boats, come at me with some serious
You saw
policy.
the drowned rat thing and thought, serious.
Again, I'm not saying that the other ones aren't, but I'm saying that the Reform Party and the people that they're putting forward aren't serious people.
I mean, I think you're wrong, Brad, but...
It's serious people. They're saying, we think they're all crap.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, I think you're wrong. I think the problem is as long as Reform can get all those candidates up and running, which they say they can, on the ballots, that's going to take away votes from the Conservative Party. If Nigel's going around being their cheerleader, then that's great for them. OK, it would have been worth a few thousand more, maybe, for them. Maybe this is a difference between them losing a lot of dozens, scores of seats, rather than...
But Ryan, let me ask you this question. I've repeated this multiple times on the show, but I think people know where I stand. The way our system has developed, these political parties are supposed to be broad churches. Actually, in both major political parties, we've got cliques who are bothered about very minor issues. And the reality is, you can criticise Nigel Farage all day, you can criticise Jeremy Corbyn all day, but the reality is that these people have been alienated by political parties that are supposed to embrace all factions of their side.
Totally. I think if you go back to the 2015 election, UKIP got 4 million votes. Now, if David Cameron had taken some of that on board, some of their concerns, it may have not led to the referendum, us leaving the European Union. So I think on a fundamental question, if the electoral system was reformed, that you actually let some of the UKIP view, as it were, into sort of mainstream politics or part of the people who are actually elected, things may have been very, very different. So you had 4 million people who are effectively
the big problem. I will tell you the big problem before we move on. With the Nigel Farage revolution. By walking out of the Conservative Party, he got Brexit done. But of course, there are people in the Conservative Party who leapt for joy because suddenly their entire right flank had disappeared and now they're the predominant brand in conservatism. So people vote for them, but they can be absolute Liberal Democrats and get away with it because there's no real internal opposition. Anyway, Peter, has Lee Anderson said to Nigel Farage to man up? I mean, it's the battle of the loony, isn't it?
It is.
Like, which one's worse? OK, is it true or is it false?
It's true.
It's absolutely true.
That Was the Woke That Was continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was the Woke That Was.
Diane Abbott has been signed up by Channel 4 to replace Rachel Riley on Countdown. Who writes this garbage? Is it true or is it false?
I'll put that down as a false.
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, look, the thing that makes me laugh about Diane Abbott was when she came on the TV and she goes, when I was at school, people thought I was thick, but now I'm a Labour MP. Well, listen, love, I mean, I'm not being funny. I mean, she's just a disaster, isn't she?
I think it's going to be difficult for her to make a comeback. I know the Labour Party are trying to sort of go round the houses to put off a decision. She's been under investigation by the Labour Party. This has been this probe for best.
But this is the usual. This is the usual situation with the political left. She has been accused of serious racism, and actually to mitigate that, they dug up some Tory donor that no one had ever heard of in order to make her the victim.
Yeah, no, I just wonder what they do with her. I think they just put her out to, I would say, out to grass, out to pasture because
I think it's a big problem.
Yeah,
I do. I really do agree.
I think there's a lot of Labour people who are really, really upset about this. You look at Keir Starmer welcoming Natalie Elphicke the other day, somebody who, when I was at my Express days, made me look left-wing. And it was like, and
I mean, I have to say about Natalie
we were
Elphicke,
kind of touch and go on the, and you've got to sort of say, and they're not allowing this campaign, this social justice warrior, which is what a lot of people in Labour, a lot of the activists, a lot of people on the streets, a lot of those Jeremy Corbyn supporters I was talking about, see Diane Abbott as, and I think it's a big problem. I don't really see how he can.
I think the number one thing that Natalie Elphicke needs to do is confirm where the mushrooms came up from for mushroom stroganoff, because I'm telling you, something went badly wrong there. I mean, she literally left the Conservative Party on the grounds of immigration and joined the Labour Party.
I was absolutely staggered. I remember, being at Prime Minister's Questions when that announcement came up, and someone messaged me to say Natalie Elphicke has defected. And the first thing you think was, well, she must have gone to Reform, but no, she'd actually gone to the Labour Party. It was staggering. But just on Diane Abbott, a lot of, she's been campaigning. She'll be seen as a, erstwhile campaigner for the best part of 40 years since she's been in Parliament. So Labour will create factions, but just like Keir Starmer, he thinks he can probably.
But they haven't got much time with Diane Abbott.
Because
they've got literally
days,
weeks to decide.
Weeks or days. Yeah.
Probably, I think it's more days, really, because at time of recording, she still doesn't know.
Shut up! It's Saturday.
Doesn't know if she's the candidate or not. And I find that staggering. And I do think Keir Starmer, I think you're right, that has a real problem with this situation. It has been going on for over a year, and they've got to give an answer. But I find it interesting. I go back to when all of it kind of kicked off, where somehow. It was what Diane Abbott said was well beyond the pale, and somebody said, "Oh well, she gets abuse as well, so it's not that bad."
Yeah,
I was like, "No. You either have the standards or you don't."
The best one is the reason she's not good at accounts is she grew up in a council estate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just visible.
I know.
As an excuse, isn't it?
I mean,
Anyway,
either kick her out and be honest about it. This is really poor show. This is somebody who's given decades of campaigning. She made a mistake. Decades and decades of campaigning. It's hugely popular amongst Labour people. I should say, actually, amongst independent readers as well.
She's probably also one of the most recognised.
Anyway, we're gonna move on because we're coming close to the end of the show. Ryan, I think we know the answer to this, but has Diane Abbott been signed up to replace Rachel Riley on Countdown? Is it true or false?
That's a false.
It's absolutely false. OK, Anne Robinson has given away her £50 million fortune to her family to avoid inheritance tax. Is it true or is it false, Pete?
I think this one.
If she put it in trust, she'd be able to avoid it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is true from what I vaguely remember hearing. But it does surprise me because for some time, the Conservatives have teased the idea of scrapping inheritance tax as being one of the manifesto pledges. And that seems to have gone awfully quiet as of late. But
it's not too late.
Exactly. There's still time. There's still time.
Somebody told me Anne Robinson every year used to go on holiday with the following people: Michael Howard, Ed Vasey and Angie Bray. Remember the House of Lords? I thought, that would be weird.
That's a weird combination
Imagine
of people.
Anne Robinson and Michael Howard.
Yeah, but... No, I think inheritance tax, just as a general policy...
It's a voluntary tax.
Yeah, I do find it interesting because it's one of those taxes and one of those policies that is always judged on its intention and not on its outcome. Because, if you think about it, inheritance tax was there to kind of even the playing field and all the rest of it. Would we really argue that it's worked? No. So why do we keep plowing along with it? It doesn't make any sense.
I'm sorry to dispel the myth. The vast majority of payments on inheritance tax are people who thought they'd be below the threshold and were slightly over.
Yeah.
People are not giving away £50 million mansions at all. It's all moved into trust. It takes 10 minutes to do it, and that's and so it's effectively a voluntary tax.
Yeah, I do remember reading something, I think it was last year actually, where it was a lot of farmers were getting caught up in it because of the thresholds and all the rest of it, and a lot of kind of like upper middle class families were starting to feel the pinch over it because the parents, that generation was dying out. And I do remember there was a big call for reform in it, and it did die out, but I don't know. It's just...
I had a friend of mine, you're not going to believe this, who simply never called the tax man to say his mum was dead. And he said 20 years on, they've probably given up by now. He just literally sold the house and didn't bother telling them.
Yeah, there's what, she's 127.
I would not recommend doing that.
Yeah, don't do that. But no, I do think this is true, and I think we will probably see a lot more of this. I know we see a lot of the super wealthy saying they're not giving any money to their kids and all the rest of it, but I think we'll see a lot of people trying to get around
that's not what they say. They always go, we're giving the vast majority of our money away. Well, you're worth £25 billion, right? I mean, the vast majority would still be.
Yeah. But no, I do think we'll see a lot of people trying to gift things away and, trying to get round a lot of this stuff now because, as you said, the thresholds are becoming a little bit narrow and people just over the marks are being hit, and they're being hit pretty hard with it as well.
I think they're flirting with the idea. Jeremy Hunt at the weekend was very keen to say that, it may not be a first priority, but it's certainly on the agenda. And they need to do something big. They need to change the dial. So whether it's inheritance tax, whether it's stamp duty, they need to make a big offer.
It actually has a negligible effect on the economy as well. It's actually preventing growth. So there is.
I mean, I think that the obvious
it.
solution is to nationalise Anne Robinson. I mean, if she was moved into the public sector, the cost would go down considerably.
I just think the main reason that they won't go hell for leather with it, particularly maybe now, is because of the politics of it. You know, Rishi's worth an incredible amount of money and it will look like he's trying to protect his friends. That's the narrative that the Labour Party and other oppositions will go down, which I don't think is fair or right. But I think, like David said, there is a credible argument for
I'll tell you
at
what you
least
do.
reducing it.
Very simple. Don't get rid of it. Just rename it Death Duty.
Yeah.
It'll go very quickly once that happens. But anyway, Pete, has Anne Robinson decided to give away 50 million quid? Is it true or is it false?
It's true.
It's absolutely true. OK, so now we come to the end of the quiz, and I want to congratulate David Maddox from The Independent on 586 points. I want to congratulate Pete Barnes on minus 320. And I want to say that I'm trying to suck up to the Sun. So Ryan Sabey, Deputy Political Editor of The Sun, wins with 4,685,023.4. Congratulations, Ryan. Until next time, goodbye.